What's something people don't know about the Bugis? These legendary seafarers weren't just pirates. They built an entire maritime empire that changed the course of Southeast Asian history. If you love untold stories from history, make sure to comment your thoughts below and subscribe for more epic sagas like this one. The story of the Bugis begins on the island of Sulawesi. This island is part of modern-day Indonesia. Its unique shape with 4 long peninsulas meant that the sea was never far away. For the Bugis people, the ocean was not a barrier, it was a highway. It connected them to a world of opportunity and adventure. They learned to read the winds and the stars from a young age. Their culture was deeply tied to the rhythms of the monsoon, which dictated when they could sail and when they had to stay home. This intimate knowledge of the sea gave them a significant advantage over many other groups in the region. They were born into a world where maritime skill meant survival and prosperity. Their courage was legendary. The Bugis believed in a concept called a complex code of honor, pride, and self-esteem. This cultural value demanded that they defend their personal and collective honor at all costs. An insult could lead to a blood feud that lasted for generations. This same fierce spirit was taken to the seas. They were not just sailors, they were warriors who sailed. They faced treacherous storms, rival traders, and hostile shores with a determination that few could match. Their reputation for being fearless and unyielding spread throughout the archipelago, making others think twice before challenging a Bugis vessel on the open water. This combination of skill and bravery was the foundation of their future influence. The Bugis were also brilliant shipbuilders. They created the iconic, a 2-masted sailing ship that was both fast and resilient. These vessels were marvels of engineering, built without blueprints, using techniques passed down through generations. A Pinisi could carry large amounts of cargo, from spices and textiles to weapons and precious metals. It was also sturdy enough to withstand long, difficult voyages across the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. The ships themselves were a symbol of Bugis identity and ingenuity. They were the tools that allowed the Bugis to project their power far beyond the shores of Sulawesi, turning distant ports into familiar destinations. This deep-rooted maritime culture set the stage for their expansion. While other societies were focused on agriculture and building empires on land, the Bugis built their empire on the waves. Their society was geared towards the sea. Their heroes were great sailors and traders. Their myths and legends were filled with tales of epic voyages. This unique focus gave them a mobility and reach that land-based kingdoms could not replicate. They were not confined by borders or mountains. The entire maritime world of Southeast Asia was their domain, a vast and open frontier waiting to be explored, traded with, and when necessary, conquered by these masters of the sea. Initially, the Bugis were primarily traders. They sailed their Pinisi ships across the Malay archipelago, carrying goods from one port to another. They were the essential middlemen in a complex network of commerce. They brought cloves from the Spice Islands, rice from Java, and textiles from India. Their trading posts became bustling centers of exchange. However, the world of trade in the 17th and 18th centuries was fiercely competitive and often violent. To protect their cargo and their routes, Bugis traders had to be armed. The line between a merchant defending his ship and a pirate attacking another began to blur. They learned that force was often the most effective tool in business. The arrival of European colonial powers, particularly the Dutch, changed the game entirely. The Dutch East India Company, or VOC, sought to create a monopoly over the valuable spice trade. They imposed strict rules, forced local rulers to sign unfair treaties, and used their powerful navy to punish anyone who defied them. The Bugis, with their independent spirit and commitment to free trade, refused to bow to Dutch control. They saw the VOC's monopoly as a direct threat to their livelihood and their honor. This conflict transformed many Bugis traders into what the Europeans called pirates. For the Bugis, however, they were not pirates. They were freedom fighters, resisting a foreign power that sought to dominate their world. Their response was strategic and ruthless. They did not just raid Dutch ships. They formed powerful alliances with local sultans who also resented European interference. The Bugis offered their services as elite mercenaries and naval commanders. They were known for their loyalty to their allies and their ferocity in battle. A ruler who had Bugis warriors on his side had a significant advantage. They became kingmakers, intervening in succession disputes and civil wars across the region. They would help a prince claim a throne, and in return, they would be granted titles, land, and most importantly, control over trade in that kingdom. This strategy allowed them to build a network of influence that stretched from Sumatra to the Philippines. They were not just random raiders, they were a political and military force to be reckoned with. They understood the local politics of the archipelago far better than the Europeans did. While the Dutch saw a collection of separate ports and kingdoms, the Bugis saw a web of family ties, rivalries, and obligations. They masterfully navigated this complex social landscape, using their martial prowess and political savvy to become the true power brokers of the seas. Their actions shaped the destiny of numerous kingdoms in what is now modern Malaysia and Indonesia. A crucial difference separated the Bugis from the pirates of the Caribbean. While figures like Blackbeard and Calico Jack sought personal wealth and lived short, violent lives, the Bugis had grander ambitions. They were not interested in just plundering a ship and sailing away. They were building dynasties. When they intervened in a local conflict, they often did so with the goal of establishing a permanent presence. They would marry into royal families, securing their influence for future generations. Their leaders became viziers, advisors, and even sultans themselves. They were integrating themselves into the very fabric of the societies they entered. This process of state building is what makes their story so unique. In the Johor Sultanate on the Malay Peninsula, Bugis leaders became the real power behind the throne. The office of the Yang Tuan Muda, or deputy ruler, became a hereditary position for Bugis chiefs. They effectively governed the kingdom, controlling its military and its economy, while the Malay Sultan remained a figurehead. They established new settlements, promoted trade, and created stable governments. This was not the behavior of common pirates. It was the work of skilled politicians and administrators who were creating lasting institutions and shaping the course of history in the region. Their influence extended far beyond a single kingdom. The Bugis established a vast, interconnected network of allied states. A Bugis leader in Selangor could call upon his cousins and allies in Riau or Borneo for support. This network functioned like an informal empire, bound by kinship, treaties, and shared economic interests. It allowed them to challenge the might of European colonial powers like the Dutch and the British on a more equal footing. They could mobilize fleets and armies from across the archipelago, presenting a unified front that was difficult to defeat. Their organization and long-term vision set them apart from any other pirate group in history. This focus on creating lasting power structures meant that their legacy would endure. The Caribbean pirates left behind legends and buried treasure. The Bugis left behind kingdoms and royal lineages that continue to this day. The royal houses of Selangor and Johor in modern Malaysia, for example, trace their ancestry back to these formidable Bugis warriors and statesmen. They did not simply take from the world, they reshaped it. They overthrew rulers, yes, but they also installed new ones and built the foundations for states that would survive for centuries, demonstrating a political sophistication far beyond simple piracy. The era of Bugis dominance eventually waned as the colonial powers consolidated their control over Southeast Asia in the 19th century. The advent of steamships rendered the Pinisi's reliance on monsoon winds obsolete, and powerful European navies finally managed to suppress the independent Bugis fleets. However, the Bugis did not simply disappear. Their story did not end with their defeat at sea. Instead, their influence became woven into the cultural, political, and economic fabric of the region. The kingdoms they had helped build continued, and the descendants of the great Bugis warriors remained as powerful figures in local politics. Their legacy was not erased, it was absorbed. Today, the Bugis heritage is a source of immense pride. In Sulawesi, the art of building Pinisi ships is still alive, recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. These magnificent vessels, though now often fitted with engines, continue to sail the Indonesian seas, a living link to their seafaring ancestors. The Bugis people are still known for their entrepreneurial spirit and their willingness to migrate and seek opportunities far from home, a modern reflection of their historical wanderlust. The tales of their ancestors' bravery and political cunning are recounted as stories of resistance and independence, not of simple piracy. The Bugis diaspora is spread throughout Southeast Asia, a testament to their historical migrations. In Malaysia, Singapore, and across Indonesia, people proudly claim Bugis ancestry. High-profile politicians and business leaders in these countries often trace their lineage back to these Sulawesi seafarers. This heritage is sometimes invoked in modern politics, symbolizing strength, determination, and a refusal to be subjugated. The Bugis name is not a relic of the past. It is a component of contemporary identity for millions of people, connecting them to a shared history of maritime greatness and political influence. Ultimately, the story of the Bugis is a powerful reminder that history is often written by the victors. To the Europeans, they were disruptive pirates who threatened colonial order. But from a regional perspective, they were master strategists, kingmakers, and patriots who defended their way of life against foreign encroachment. Their saga is far more complex than a simple tale of plunder on the high seas. It is the story of a people who used the ocean as a path to power, building kingdoms and forging a legacy that continues to resonate in the heart of maritime Southeast Asia today, a permanent echo of the time when their Pinisi sails ruled the waves.